Oh,
Oh, do we have spillage?
oh
Oh no. Oh no.
well.
All right. Well, Chris has his beer. I have my wine. It must be time for a Fumfa Poets and Writers Live reading.
It is Fumfa
Perfect.
time.
It is Fumfa time. Oh, Chris, you know what I just realized? Our logo is missing. Boom. We removed it the last time we had a group meeting.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Excuse me, a group reading because it was covering our person's face in the top corner. Yeah.
So hard to do.
I'm trying to grab it, Chris. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, it must have been like that for a week or so. Okay, well, now it's back. Well, Chris, this is a very, very special reading day that we have. And of course, we'll do our official welcome at 7. But we're so excited for our first ever International Women's Day reading and, just contributing to greater awareness of International Women's Day, which a lot of people don't know about in the United States. So that's going to be great. We have an all-star lineup, just wonderful writers and alums of the program, faculty from the program, friends of the program who are going to be reading with us tonight. So that's great. But Chris, what are you drinking tonight? What is this wonderful craft beer that you've got going on?
Appropriate. Look at that lovely.
How lovely, indeed.
Isn't that nice? Hope
It is absolutely lovely.
Hope Island. Thimble Island Brewing Company. Hope Island is the beer. They're in Branford, Connecticut.
Ooh.
And, yeah. Quite tasty, if I may say.
Yes.
There's your mom. Hi, Mom. And
hey, Mom. Mom is in here. Hey, Sarah Sleeper. Sarah's in the house. Fabulous.
What do you got? Some vino?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I have some red Moscato tonight. It sounds fancy, but it was, I don't know, this was like $6.
All right. The
yeah.
good stuff.
But it's delicious. I like me some barefoot. And so I've got some red Moscato going on. I got it in my little flower glass here. And I'm excited to enjoy that during this evening's readings.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm also trying a little bit of a new thing with my eye makeup, doing a little bit more of a cat eye. So I'm doing a little bit more coloring with the a little bit more liquid eyeliner is on my eyes than before, if you could notice. Pete Nelson is in the audience. Hey, Pete.
Pete's going to be on here in a few weeks with helping us celebrate our anniversary.
Our anniversary. It is coming up, guys and ladies. I can't believe on the one hand that, we've been dealing with this pandemic situation for about a year, but it is also pretty special to realize that we've been doing this for a year now. And except for our little vacation times and, holidays that have passed, we have been together every week sharing readings, celebrating our friends' books and meeting new writers and kind of just helping to make this a less isolated and a warmer time in terms of writing community. And, it's been a joy to us as much as hopefully it's been a joy to you. So we're excited to celebrate that. We're going to have a special reading that's going to be kind of more like a little party, sharing memories, sharing a little bit of new writing. And
Pete Nelson might play a song.
And Pete Nelson might play a song. Get excited, peeps.
All
right.
We're going to have some other delightful guests.
Yes. Lona's out there. JLC Myers is out there. Joanna. Right. This is great. Okay, well, Chris, it is 7 o'clock. It's time for our official welcome. All right. Welcome, everybody, officially to our International Women's Day reading. We're so excited tonight to have with us Meg Moore, Casey Lee Ford, Christine Koubek, Anna M. Evans, Rachel Basch, and Eugenia Kim. Each of them will be sharing readings from their favorite women authors, and some of them will be sharing their own original writing as well. And we're really excited that this was able to come together. It was a little bit of a last minute thought that we should have a special theme reading to celebrate International Women's Day, which a lot of people in the United States just don't know about. And that just surprises me so much. But once again, I realized until a few years ago, I didn't even know about it. Right, Chris? Ridiculous.
Doesn't surprise me that much, frankly. But here we are doing our bit to spread the word.
We are doing our bit to spread the word. And, Chris was just mentioning before we got started with the show this evening, there are 365 days in a year. We can't get a women's holiday on this calendar, we can't celebrate more women's accomplishments and, have a day to really focus on gender equality and supporting charities that serve women, celebrating women's accomplishments. And so it's very exciting. So actually, International Women's Day as an international holiday, a special day, is tomorrow. And I just wanted to share a little bit with you all from internationalwomensday.com. It says International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. Significant activity is witnessed worldwide as groups come together to celebrate women's achievements or rally for women's equality. It's marked annually on March 8th, and it's one of the most important days of the year to celebrate women's achievements, raise awareness about women's equality, lobby for accelerated gender parity, and fundraise for female-focused charities. So, get involved, everybody. Now that you're aware, if you weren't aware before, please do celebrate women's achievements tomorrow and always. And, do your thing to support and raise awareness of this special day as well. We're going to get into our reading in just a moment. But Chris, perhaps you can let the audience know about a few other readings that we have coming up in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Lots of excitement. We have next week an open mic night. Now we have some great people lined up. David Legere, Sarah Balsley, Michael Dunaway, Eric Shurik, and there's some space. There are some spaces left. So if people out there have 5, 6, 7 minute piece, some poems, some prose, whatever, please let us know.
Yes, please let us know as soon as possible, and don't be shy.
The following week we have Elizabeth Kirshner and Barb Jennis, and then we've got party night for our first anniversary, featuring a stellar lineup. A partial list of that is Mr. Pete Nelson, Mr. Baron Wormser. We got Yana Opidi and LaRue Cook, who are our very first guests. And then after that is Easter. We're off for Easter. Then we got Elena Dillon and AJ O'Connell. And then down the line, it's just like I don't know. It's too many. There's not enough time.
A star-studded list of friends and special guests. And, we're basically almost fully booked up for our little spring season. We are going to take a break at the end of May. But we're planning on being back this summer. So if you would like to read with us, if you have a book coming out, reach out. We want to get you on here.
Great. And we got Fairfield Book Prize. All the finalists are lined up for 2 nights later on in the spring.
Yes. Oh, so excited to celebrate them and their accomplishment and their manuscript, and, just get excited about those finalists. It's going to be so great. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into welcoming our first guest of the evening, who is Meg Moore. And let me share her bio with you right now. Just scrolling. All right. Margaret Moore attended Fairfield University for her undergraduate education. A May 2020 magna cum laude graduate, she earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in English Creative Writing. She was the 2019 recipient of Fairfield's Marianne S. Regan Award for Outstanding Achievement in English and the Creative Nonfiction Essay Award. Now in her second semester of the MFA, she is pursuing a dual concentration in nonfiction and poetry. Along with thriving as a creative, Meg dabbles in academia and has been delivering graduate-level presentations at national and international writing conferences since she was an undergraduate freshman at Fairfield. This semester, Meg holds a graduate assistant position in which she serves as an intern for Woodhall Press and an associate editor for Dogwood, a journal of poetry and prose. Meg enjoys pushing the boundaries of writing to their absolute limits by working in multiple and hybrid genres and by crafting hermit crab essays and digital humanities pieces. Her work has appeared in Brevity's nonfiction blog, Kairos, a journal of rhetoric, Technology and Pedagogy, Independent Catholic News, Positive Writer, and How We Are, among other publications. We're thrilled to welcome Meg Moore. Let's bring her up. Welcome, Meg.
Hi, Katie.
We're so excited for your reading. We'll leave it to you.
Thank you. It's great to be with you all tonight. I thought I'd start by sharing an incredible poem by Mary Oliver, The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fold down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? This is a poem called Remember Woman by Reese Leva. Remember, woman, you were born life giver, miracle creator, magic maker. You were born with the heart of 1,000 mothers, open and fearless and sweet. You were born with the fire of queens and conquerors, warriors' blood you bleed. You were born with the wisdom of sages and shamans, no wound can you not heal. You were born the teller of your own tale, before none should you kneel. You were born with an immeasurable soul reaching out past infinity. You were born to desire with passion, abandon, and to name your own destiny. Remember, woman, remember you are more than you can see. Remember, woman, remember you are loved endlessly. Remember, woman, your power and grace, the depth of your deep sea heart. Never forget you are a woman, divine, as you have been from the start. And this is an Emily Dickinson poem called One Sister Have I in Our House. One sister have I in our house and one a hedge away. There's only one recorded, but both belong to me. One came the way that I came and wore my past years down. The other is a bird, her nest builded our hearts among. She did not sing as we did, it was a different tune, herself to her a music as bumblebee in June. Today is far from childhood, but up and down the hills, I held her hand the tighter, which shortened all the miles, and still her hem the years among, deceives the butterfly. Still in her eye, the violets lie mouldered this many May. I spelt the dew, but took the morn. I chose this single star from out the wide night's numbers. Sue, forevermore. Now I'm going to share some of my original poetry that I've written about feminism over the years. I'll start with a haiku that I actually wrote on International Women's Day a couple years ago. Yes, I am woman. Don't underestimate me. I'll achieve greatness. My next one is called Still She'd Rise. Her gas light went on in the middle of the road to astounding wonders. It was an old car and the gauge never worked right. It appeared full, yet the light shone, and the car died with an ugly groan. She got out and started walking to find the means to refuel. She had no phone or jacket. She wore heels. She had been driving all alone. She heard the rumble of thunder, and it looked like the sky was about to open up. Yet still she went. Still she'd rise. Still she'd rise. And my next poem is called Crowning Her True Endowment, a feminist critique of fairy tales. And to juxtapose this a little bit, I took a literary fairy tale tradition course in college, and in that I really learned how much fairy tales can have implications on gender roles and stereotypes. So I wrote this after the semester ended, but that class was the inspiration behind this. Once upon a time, there lived a princess in a magical, faraway land. In the end, the prince rescued her. Wait, what? Actually, she rescues him. Thank you very much. Was it not Belle who saved Beast and his kingdom just before the petals fell? Was it not Cinderella who showed Prince Charming what true love really is? Was it not Pocahontas who saved John Smith from execution and who instigated peace? Literally jumping into a war. Now, that takes guts. Let's not forget Ariel swimming in to save the day, mazing through the pieces of the flaming shipwreck to catch Eric before he slipped away beneath the rough, blue waves. Yes, there are the castles and the gowns, the tiaras and the jewels, the balls and the feasts. But those come only after the princesses rise above life's greatest hassles, the stepmothers and stepsisters, the antagonists, the wars, and nature's wrath. Yes, the princess lives happily ever after with her prince. Let us remember, though, who makes the happy ending possible. Let us remember who does the rescuing. Though it is often overlooked, they live happily ever after because of her. They live happily ever after because of her. And my last poem is called Her Thriving Nature. She is a force to be reckoned with, one unlike any other. She comes like thunder in the rain. Yes, she comes like thunder beating its mighty bass drum among the snare drum rhythms of rain. She is fearless in nature, never afraid to take the world by storm. She makes her voice heard above all the rest. Her words, her actions too, defy the norm. She is not afraid to rattle old foundations loose. As she wants to see the world at its best, she creates change, uprooting old fixtures to make room for modern upgrades of thought and of life. She comes like thunder in the rain. The storm, though, only rages on one of many of her sides. For she comes too, like the first balmy breeze of spring, rushing through the earth as a cool gust that gently ruffles blades of green grass. She is tame yet still sharp, fierce yet calmed into a pleasant phenomenon. So too does she come as blossoms in the spring, promising that new life and beauty will grow after a long, cold season. She comes as a rainbow framed against a smoky blue sky. Behind her, she leaves a trail of all the colors of nature, also pleasing to the eye. And, yes, she comes as rays of sun beaming down from the vast, azure sky. She is a bright source of light, of warmth, of love. To the world, she gives a glimpse of He who reigns above. It is her nature to be a thunderous force, a fierce wind, spring's gentle breeze, and the season's first budding blossom. She comes as a rainbow and a ray of God's sunlight. It is her nature to be fearless, gentle, bold, loving, and as radiant as can be. Her nature is completely one of a kind. In all seasons, in all weather, too, she thrives. As clear as the sky on a cloudless day, all can see that her nature is to thrive in the most wondrous of ways. Thank you.
Woo! Meg, we know you can't hear the applause of everyone at home, but you just rocked all of our worlds with the poems that you shared and with your gorgeous, gorgeous poems of your own. Just absolutely incredible. You've got to read all of the comments on Facebook and YouTube later, with people giving you just so much love.
Thank you.
Yes, Chris and I just wanted to ask you a quick question. If anybody in the audience has a question they'd like to share with Meg, please put it up there right now before we move on. We just wanted to ask you, Meg, one of our famous questions. Could you share a pearl of wisdom for writers and share a book recommendation?
Particularly a pearl of wisdom that perhaps you picked up from one of the women writers that you shared their work with us tonight. That was a terrible grammatic sentence. But wisdom that you picked up from Mary Oliver, Emily Dickinson, something that you
from one of your favorite women writers.
Yeah. That's a hard question.
I'd say to be fearless in your writing, in your approaches, and in submitting it for publication. My book would be Little Women.
Fearless.
Say the book recommendation one more time, Meg.
Little Women.
Oh, I didn't. Chris, did you catch that?
Something women. It's hard. It was hard to hear because it's just a little bit faint.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard to hear, but we'll put it up in the comments as soon as we can. But that is such excellent advice, to be fearless in pursuing publication. Absolutely. And that's something my mentor, Kim Bridgeford, who many of you know, always told me about. Maybe Meg, you knew her. But you were just so fabulous, Meg. Thank you so much for your reading. We love you, and you gotta check out those comments later. All right. And we are going to now bring up our next reader, Casey Lee Ford. Chris, will you do the honors of reading her bio for us?
Casey Ford is a poet. She is completing the Fairfield University MFA. Casey also does freelance academic editing and is an instructor of composition and creative writing at Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas. Her poetry has appeared in several regional journals, including Concho River Review, Amarillo Bay, the Texas Poetry Assignment, and Writing, Texas.
Awesome.
So welcome, Casey. It's great to see somebody here from Texas, and your power's on, and everything's working.
Perfect.
So welcome aboard. Uh-oh.
Oh, you're muted. Hold on. We'll unmute you.
Oh,
Casey, just go ahead and unmute yourself. I'm so sorry.
There we go.
There you go. Welcome, Casey.
Yeah, I have running water and everything.
Oh, all right, well, take it away. Have fun.
Thanks. I'm going to call my little segment Hot Takes on Eve. I could not decide on one woman to read, so I'm reading several contemporary poems that kind of center around the same subject matter. The first I'm going to read is by a poet named Elena Rodriguez. She has multiple distinguishing identities that give her a unique voice as a poet, but an important note for the poem I'm about to read is that Rodriguez was born in Cuba and came to the United States when she was 9 years old through Operation Peter Pan. And I had never heard of this until I researched this poet a little bit, Operation Peter Pan. Just Google that if you need to. This poem appears in her book, Garden of Exile, which won the Catherine A. Morton Poetry Prize in 1998. The First Woman. She was my Sunday school teacher when I was just 7 and 8. He was the newly hired pastor, an albino, alarming sight, with his transparent eyelashes and mouse pink skin that looked like it might hurt whenever she caressed his arm. Since Eva was her name, to my child's mind, it made great sense that she should fall in love with him. He was Adan. Before the fall and afterward, her invert twin. And she, Eva, was blonde as well, though more robust, like Liv Ullmann. I loved her honey hair, her full lips, her green eyes, a nameless sin. Not that I worried all that much. The church was Presbyterian. In Sunday school, her way to teach us kids to pray was to comment on all the beauty we could touch or see in our environment. My hand was always in the air to volunteer my sentiment. Since other kids considered prayer a chore, the floor was usually mine. My list of joys left out her hair, but blessed the red hibiscus seen through the windows while others bowed their heads. Her heart I schemed to win with purple prose on meringue clouds. For who was Adan anyway, I thought, but nada spelled backward. While hers, reversed, called out, Ave, Ave, the lyric of a bird born and airborne on the same day. But it was night when I saw her outside the church for the last time. Yellow light, mosquitoes, summer. I shaped a barking dog, a fine but disembodied pair of wings with my hands. She spoke in hushed tones to my parents. The next day, I would find myself up north in a strange house, without my tongue and almost blind. There was so much to see. This caused Cuba, my past, to be eclipsed in time, but Eva stayed, a loss. Ave, I learned, meant also this, farewell. I haven't seen her since. Louise Gluck was U.S. Poet Laureate from 2003 to 2004, and her vast body of work has won numerous prestigious awards, but most notably, she won the 2020 Nobel Prize in Literature. And I have no idea whether she sees Eve in this poem she wrote, but I do, so I'm including it here. It appears in her 2014 book, Faithful and Virtuous Night, which won the National Book Award. book. It's called The Couple in the Park. A man walks alone in the park, and beside him a woman walks, also alone. How does one know? It is as though a line exists between them, like a line on a playing field. And yet, in a photograph, they might appear a married couple, weary of each other and of the many winters they have endured together. At another time, they might be strangers about to meet by accident. She drops her book, stooping to pick it up. She touches by accident his hand, and her heart springs open like a child's music box, and out of the box comes a little ballerina made of wood. I have created this, the man thinks. Though she can only whirl in place, still she is a dancer of some kind, not simply a block of wood. This must explain the puzzling music coming from the trees. Tracy K. Smith was U.S. Poet Laureate from 2017 to 2019, and this poem comes from her 2018 book, Wade in the Water. And I kind of think of this poem as being in the voice of an Eve who was cryo-frozen as she stepped out of the garden and then reawakened in Brooklyn in the 21st century. Garden of Eden. What a profound longing I feel just this very instant for the Garden of Eden on Montague Street, where I seldom shopped, usually only after therapy, elbow sore at the crook from a handbasket filled to capacity. The glossy pastries, pomegranate, persimmon, quince. Once, a bag of black beluga lentils spilt a trail behind me while I labored to find a tea they refused to carry. It was Brooklyn, my 30s. Everyone I knew was living the same desolate luxury, each ashamed of the same things, innocence and privacy. I'd lug home the paper bags, doing bank balance math and counting days. I'd squint into it or close my eyes and let it slam me in the face, the known sun setting on the dawning century. And last is my own hot take on Eve. And the title is Pomegranate. From underground up, this tree has trouble written all over it, and I crave everything about it. To entwine my brand new legs with its ancient, gnarly trunks, braid up my hair into all its spiny stems and leaves. I take one of its dense, red hearts in my hand, open my chest, remove the factory install, place the fruit within the bloody cavity. All the arteries know what to do. The wound wraps around the implant. My veins throb with reason. See, days, 7 centuries from now, when even evolved men, not like the one muttering names for things he's never seen, stumbling around the yard here, will blame me, despite their ability to read, for claiming my true heart. They will call it sin and me, the climber who swallowed a reptile's lies. There is no snake in this garden, nor a god, nor any influence besides pure conscience vibrating inside the seated vascular core of me. Hundreds of saturated vermilion gems at the center of a center pulsing with insight, And when it bursts open to bear new fruit, my whole essence, a hot rubied liquor, will flood and stain the garden an incandescent red, the illuminated shade of Exodus and origin. Thank you.
Woo! Casey
Wow.
totally rocked my world with that whole series of hot takes on Eve poems from other women poets, and especially yours at the end there. Oh my God, I'm dying to read it again. Is this published anywhere? Can we get our hands on it, Casey?
Yeah.
It's
Will
brand
be.
new, but God, God willing.
I hope so. Wow. Oh, that was powerful. So good.
Thank you. That's
Great idea.
kind.
To
Thank
have
you.
that theme.
Oh, Barron's here, and he says, "Well done. I win."
Oh my God, yes. That's like all you need, right?
Ding, 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 ding. Beautiful.
That is great. Yes. All right. So you're going to have to definitely go on Facebook, YouTube later, see all of the comments, all of the love people are sharing with you.
Karen's here too. She's my mentor this semester, and hopefully she noticed the revisions I made. Hello, Karen.
Oh, very nice.
All right. You're paying way too much attention to this.
Sorry. That's okay.
No, it's fine.
I know. I'm just having fun here.
I'll let you guys run it.
It's all good, Casey. You're a rock star.
So, but I have a question, because we, just you read from 3 different poets and then you yourself, and we like to ask for pearls of wisdom. So, I mean, you have 3 different poets, right? Different styles, different places they're coming from. Is there like one common pearl of wisdom that you could glean from these 3 particular writers? Something that you have used as a writer? You said, I can use this from Louise Gluck or Tracy K. Smith or Elena Rodriguez. Something maybe they share, even if,
I'm not great at this off the cuff stuff, but I would say that just together, what they taught me, I guess, is that this, the essence of metaphor is, in the poet herself, and that it's just about finding that part of the metaphor that resonates for you, and it can just go all these different directions, whether it's cultural or emotional or psychological or philosophical or metaphysical or whatever it is. So all the poems are so different, and they all have these different agendas. Seems like the wrong word, but right. So I just I think that's it. Just bringing yourself to the table and finding it in the metaphor.
Casey, thank you so much. I also wanted to ask you, what made you choose this sort of theme for your reading, the hot takes on Eve? I love it.
Because I couldn't decide on one woman poet to share. And I'm in the MFA, so I'm reading a zillion things, and it just happened that the universe resonates, and all these Eve poems kind of came across my awareness at the same time. So
God, I love that so much. That is so great. And I especially love any kind of imagining, putting yourself in the minds of these characters, these biblical figures, these incredibly iconic
mythologies,
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredibly fascinating to me, and I think you did such a beautiful job, and I loved how the way you saw that in these different poems as well. It's so cool. And maybe one last quick question, Casey, can you leave us with a pearl of wisdom?
Well, like Meg, I'm a huge Mary Oliver fan, and I just got done reading her craft book, and she just talks so much about paying attention, and I think that's it. Is we've talked about in the residency, the most recent residency, about the habit of art and just cultivating that way of paying attention at all times, and and I'm a work in progress in that regard, and being a better payer of attention.
I know exactly what you mean, and I've read some of Mary Oliver's writing exactly on that. Couldn't agree more. And all right, well, Casey, thank you so much once again. Applause.
Thank you.
Thanks
And
for being on.
yeah, and now we need to read Anna Evans' bio.
Wait, oh, no. We got Rachel.
Oh God, Rachel, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I almost switched up our order last minute. Sorry,
God.
Rachel Basch. Welcome, Rachel. All right, I will go ahead and read your bio for our lovely audience this evening. Rachel Basch is the author of 3 novels: The Listener, shortlisted for the 2016 Firecracker Awards by the Community of Literary Magazines and Presses; The Passion of Reverend Nash, named one of the 5 best novels of 2003 by the Christian Science Monitor; and Degrees of Love, a selection of the Hartford Courant's Book Club. Basch has reviewed books for the Washington Post Book World, and her nonfiction has appeared in N+1, Salon, the Huffington Post, The Millions, and Literary Hub. Recently, the North Shore Readers Theater presented her full-length play, How To. Basch was a 2011 McDowell Colony Fellow. She teaches in the MFA program at Fairfield University and is the director of content for Abound Parenting, an educational app. She lives in Newtown, Connecticut, and you can purchase her books wherever books are sold. And you can learn more on her website, rachelbasch.com. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Rachel. We'll leave you to it.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks, Chris and Katie, for doing this. I appreciate it. So I had wanted to read an essay that was published in the New York Times Book Review in the winter of 1989, a long time ago, by Ursula Le Guin. And you can read it online. It's called The Hand That Rocks the Cradle Writes the Book. It had a huge impact on me, so big, in fact, that I wrote a letter to Ursula Le Guin after I read the piece in the book review. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from that letter as a way of introducing the other things I'm going to read tonight. From my early teens, when I began practicing a kind of hero worship regarding women writers, until now, 30 and expecting my first child, I have believed in, worse yet, lived by, the books or babies doctrine you discuss. It wasn't until I read your essay that I realized that perhaps my choosing to become a mother was not, as a successful male writer and former teacher recently told me, a form of artistic sabotage. Until I read your words, it had never occurred to me that the image of the woman writer as a lean, lone, stripped to the bone producer of prose was, in fact, oppressive. Had I not read your article, I might have slowly come around to realizing that writing and motherhood are not mutually exclusive activities. But if it weren't for you, I know I never would have considered this path anything less than an example of my duality, my lack of career commitment. In short, the illegitimacy I feel as a struggling writer would have just been compounded by adding motherhood to my list of credentials. My debt to you lies in your uncovering of the less than feminist aspects of the books or babies dictum. So much of my anxiety about the choices I've made, knowing full well all the time how damn lucky I am to have been given choices at all, has to do with feeling stranded by a feminism I have always and still need to heartily embrace, which makes no mention of the synthesis of experience and which would most likely label me as having been co-opted. And if the feminist version of the literary canon, which offers Emily Dickinson and Georges Sand as role models, has no room for the likes of me, certainly mainstream popular culture with its idea of female success, the superwoman who was wife, mother, and VP, never president of the corporation, retains no place for me either. Adjunct instructors of English who write fiction and hope to be mothers are not exactly nurtured by either the sisterhood or the society at large. But as evidenced by your rich and insightful essay, they can be nurtured by other women writers. And I'm going to read two passages by a writer who has very much nurtured me, and that's Susan Minot. So the first passage I'm going to read is from a novel she wrote called Evening, which I highly recommend to everybody. Do not watch the movie, read the book. And it is told from the perspective of a woman, Anne Grant, who's on her deathbed, and she is going back through her life and coming in and out of sort of lucidity. So what I'm going to read is sort of stream of consciousness, but there is nothing disassociative about it. One thing I'll say is that she, over the course of her life, many things happened to her, and she's married a number of times, and that comes up in this passage. Ted called her from upstairs. He called her from downstairs. Her life was checking off a list while he called. She changed diapers while he was calling. She fastened a bracelet against her rib. She tucked in the girls. When are you coming back? One more kiss. She opened the window an inch. She left a crack of light in the door. She picked a lint from their sweaters, picked up the groceries, picked out the fabric, picked them up at school, picked flowers. What did you do today? What did you do? Because you're my wife, that's why. She ordered the liquor store to deliver. Anne, come here. Anne, Anne. She followed them down the dock, followed them into the dining room. She fried bacon. She followed them into the darkness. They were at the office. They were playing golf. The children rode on their shoulders. They threw balls. She was in a box in the window. Nothing's the matter. Why? They mixed drinks. Would you like another? She never turned to another place. She never turned away. Come here, they said. She was their wife. Come here. They handed back the baby. It was crying. Someone was always crying. I'll go see. She laughed when he did the snaps up wrong. She went shopping. The girls picked out shoes. She laid clothes on beds, tucked them into drawers. She was not in any other life, only this one. She folded towels, sponged counters, wiped stoves, opened the icebox, set out teacups, poured sugar bowls, baked potatoes, made hamburgers. They took it in front of the television. She had her hair done. You look nice tonight, thank you. Their hand pressed the small of her back. They played Beethoven's Ode to Joy. She wept. They drove home. Is anything the matter? I'm just tired. That's all. We're all a little tired. She slept on the left side. She slept on the right, depending on which one it was. I'm sorry. Not now. I'm trying to tell you. All right, I'm listening. She lost what she meant. She could not find it. He was shouting. He was screaming. He pushed her. I will never. He was furious. He hit her on the back. God damn you, don't you ever. No, it could not have happened to her. That was someone else. Because you're my wife, that's why. She ran a bath. They were expected at dinner. Ice dropped in glasses. Red meat bled on plates. Bright eyes in candlelight. You look like you had a good time. She was in bed in the dark. Come over here. There you are. She played tennis with the ladies. They lunched at the club. Little white dresses, anklets with balls above the sneakers, bamboo sunglasses, bamboo pocketbooks, 4 iced teas. Someone was putting in a new pool, club sandwiches, cottage cheese. Someone had a new sitter. Let's split dessert. Someone was going back to Bermuda. Someone spent the night in New York. Have you read? Have you seen? She threw a sweater over her shoulders. Sometimes there were bruises in the morning. Ted smelled of alcohol and rotten fruit. She did not mention it. They complained about their husbands, but she was quiet. She wished. Then it happened. It was a spring morning. They called her from the club and she drove straight to the hospital. The tennis pro met her there. Ted had played 3 sets, then resting in the clubhouse on a bench, slumped to the side, knocking over the cage of tennis balls. The pro knew CPR. He called the ambulance. She listened to this story at the hospital, and Ted was already gone. He left her, but she had already left him. She did not mention that. She had wished for it, and it had happened. The morning of the funeral, the water off the lawn was whipped up chalk gray. The twins were too young to go. The girls stood beside her in Florence Eisman dresses. People stood in the pulpit and said he lived how he wanted. Ted, they said, was saving them a stool at the bar. She felt minutely defined, full of air, lighter than air. Everyone came back to the house. It was like Thanksgiving, with everyone in dark clothes, the woman in heels. She felt hollow, with a jaw of bronze. She could not sleep in their bed, could not sleep. The air inside her was twisting around. They gave her pills, and finally she slept on the carpet. She did not know what to do. She thought, I must do something. She became someone else. There were the children. Grace Stackpole came and stayed. She felt she had to decide something, but there wasn't anything to decide. There was nothing to do but to wait. That was all she could do. Wait to see what would happen. Wait, she supposed, for someone else. And this last very short passage I'm going to read is from Monkeys, which was Susan Minot's first book, and it's a collection of short stories that really is like a novel. And this is from the end of a story called Wildflowers. The following spring, after her 40th birthday, Rosie Vincent gave birth for the 8th time. It was a girl, Miranda Rose. Everyone was excited. There hadn't been a baby in the house for years. Mum sat up in bed in her pretty nightgown, the pillows behind her bordered in fleur-de-lis, holding her new treasure. Everyone hovered around, knocking against the dust ruffle, lying diagonally at her feet. Mum gazed into the infant eyes, seeing their strange clarity. She touched the tiny nose. She uncurled the fiddlehead fists and showed them to everyone lolling around. You see, she said, her father's hands exactly. Then came the feeding. They watched her unbutton the nightgown and feel inside for the bosom. After fixing it to the baby mouth and satisfied with it, she looked up. Caitlin and Sophie saw it, that wild look. Only this time, there was something added. It was aimed at them, and it said, there is nothing in the world compares with this. The eye was fierce. The baby stayed fast. There is nothing so thrilling as this. Nothing. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Oh my goodness, such powerful readings. That everything that you shared was so incredibly powerful, and I was absolutely captivated during the passage you shared from Evening, also this one from Monkeys, and I think you started it off just absolutely perfectly by sharing from that letter that you wrote, speaking to that books or babies idea.
Did you get a response? Did you get a response to that letter?
No, I didn't. But to be fair, I sent it to the New York Times Book Review. I didn't know, this is this is 1989. So
right.
No internet.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The letter was typed on a typewriter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That is so good. Rachel, this is just such an awesome opportunity to have you with us, as a faculty member in the program, our special guest here as well. It's such a pleasure to have you back. I think, I don't know if we have any questions coming in, but I would love to reiterate one that Chris shared earlier, which is what is maybe any specific additional pearls of wisdom that you've gained that you could share from Ursula Le Guin or from Susan Minot? Anything else you'd like to share specifically from them?
I guess I would just say something that actually a visual artist friend of mine said to me once. We were having this conversation and I said, I never really had a mentor. I never, and she was telling me about this mentor. She had a painter, and she said, well, aren't the writers that you read mentors to? A mentor doesn't need to be somebody who you know personally. A mentor doesn't need to be alive. And I think that's part of what you guys are curating tonight by having us read women writers who are important to us. I mean, who allow us to then write what we need to write. And I think without the example that comes before you, it's very hard often to feel that you have that permission. And that's why I chose the passages I chose.
Awesome. I that is such a great pearl and such an important reminder that, you know, these incredible women, we haven't met them, we haven't worked with them, we haven't spoken directly to us, but they are our mentors in what they're sharing with us and what they're creating and what they're putting out there, and the example that they set. And that's so awesome.
Especially when you're young, you know, before you get to college or grad school or whatever, you know, whatever you do. It's like kids, you know, unless you have like a writer next door.
Right.
Right. You can kind of see, oh, that's what a writer does. It's really hard to find somebody, you know, except the people that you love to read.
I think that's true. And really, what is writing? But it's a conversation with the people that you've read, with the books you've read. I mean, that we're in this long conversation, I think. We read, we write, we read, we write. It's an ongoing back and forth. Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely. Rachel, can you leave young women writers, emerging women writers with a pearl of wisdom? I'm sure you have so many to share, but one that you're thinking of right now?
The only thing I would say, and something I've been thinking about a lot, and I try to talk to students about this a lot, you know, it's hard for me to know how dated that letter I wrote sounds to people who are 30 now. But the truth is that certain subject matter was considered, you know, just inferior and not literary and not worthy of, you know, as Casey was talking about attention, not worthy of attending to in a deep way. And I would just say, you know, claim your material. It's your material. Write what you need to write. Yeah.
Yes. Amen to that.
Great.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks for having me. This has been wonderful, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, Chris, we need to welcome Anna M. Evans up, you know, and let me bring her up while you share her bio. Welcome, Anna.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
This is great. It's so wonderful to hear all the different voices.
Isn't it? Oh my God, it's such a pleasure. So many thanks to all of you who are sharing tonight, and all of you who you know, are just watching and enjoying with us. This is such a celebration. You know, even better than I thought it would be. Thank you so much. And Chris, I'll leave you to it too.
I'm gonna read Anna's bio. Anna M. Evans's poems have appeared in journals including the Harvard Review, Rattle, the Atlanta Review, the Evansville Review, and 32 poems. She is a graduate of the Bennington College MFA program. Her poem, and I'm going to mangle this, Zeitgeber, included in the Stolen From, won the 2012 Rattle Reader's Choice Award. Her latest collection, The Unacknowledged Legislator, is published by No Chair Press. Her book, Under Dark Waters, Surviving the Titanic, is published by Able Muse Press. Her sonnet collection, Sisters and Courtesans, is published by White Violet Press. Her two books of translations, Saint Paul Roux and Other Poems from the French, and Selected Poems of Marceline de, oh boy, French is not my thing, along with 3 chapbooks. You just kind of like throw a little fake accent in there and it almost sounds okay. The Quarantine Chronicles, Superheroes and Villanelles, and the Stolen From Poems about Memory and Alzheimer's are available from Barefoot Muse Press. 2 other chapbooks, Selected Sonnets and Swimming, are available from Maverick Duck Press. Anna is a former editor of the Raintown Review and an advisory board member for Poetry by the Sea, a global conference. She is accredited by the New Jersey Artists in Education Program to work with children in grades K through 8, and she teaches poetry at the West Windsor Art Center and writing at Rowan College at Burlington County. For more info, you can visit her at Anna M. Evans, no dots in there, AnnaMEvans.com. Welcome.
Welcome, Anna. Thank you so
Sorry
much.
about all that bad French.
No,
I
it
for
was
sure.
perfect.
Okay, well, like I say, it's wonderful to hear all these different voices, and I'm going to bring you something that is also different because I am going to read you some poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who has perhaps fallen out of a little favor, but she's one of the reasons that I became a writer of sonnets, and so I wanted to share some of those with you. I'm going to read 5 of her poems and then 3 of mine that sort of engage with her work in some way. But I'm going to begin with a poem that isn't a sonnet, but it's one of the reasons that I fell in love with her work. So it's a poem, it's a younger woman's poem, let's say, but it still entrances me. It's called The Philosopher. And what are you that wanting you, I should be kept awake as many nights as there are days with weeping for your sake? And what are you that missing you, as many days as crawl, I should be listening to the wind and looking at the wall? I know a man that's a braver man, and 20 men as kind. And what are you that you should be, the one man on my mind? Yet women's ways are witless ways, as any sage will tell. And what am I that I should love so wisely and so well? Right, it's all sonnets from here in though. So this sonnet is called Bluebeard, and it's actually very prescient. Edna was ahead of her time in many ways. And I think of this poem when I think about the ways in which now we can access each other's email and look at each other's cell phone, and the boundary between privacy and sharing an appropriate amount becomes difficult to see. This door you might not open, and you did. So enter now and see for what slight thing you are betrayed. Here is no treasure hid, no cauldron, no clear crystal mirroring the sought-for truth, no heads of women slain for greed like yours, no writhings of distress, but only what you see. Look yet again, an empty room, cobwebbed and comfortless. Yet this alone out of my life I kept unto myself, lest any know me quite. And you did so profane me when you crept unto the threshold of this room tonight, that I must never before behold your face. This now is yours. I seek another place. Edna is famous for her poems about sex, which is great because she was writing at a time when most women weren't writing about sex, so especially sonnets. So I'm going to read this famous sonnet by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I, being born a woman and distressed by all the needs and notions of my kind, am urged by your propinquity to find your person fair and feel a certain zest to bear your body's weight upon my breast. So subtly is the fume of life designed to clarify the pulse and cloud the mind, and leave me once again undone, possessed. Think not for this, however, the poor treason of my stout blood against my staggering brain. I shall remember you with love, or season my scorn with pity. Let me make it plain. I find this frenzy insufficient reason for conversation when we meet again. So she was definitely ahead of her time. She had a very masculine attitude towards her lovers, of whom she had many, including her famous ménage à trois with the younger poet, her husband and this young poet, which gave rise to her famous sonnet sequence book, Fatal Interview. And here from Fatal Interview is perhaps the most famous sonnet. Love is not all. It is not meat, nor drink, nor slumber, nor a roof against the rain, nor yet a floating spar to men that sink and rise and sink and rise and sink again. Love cannot fill the thickened lung with breath, nor clean the blood, nor set the fractured bone. Yet many a man is making friends with death, even as I speak, for lack of love alone. It may well be that in a difficult hour, pinned down by pain and moaning for release, or nagged by want past resolution's power, I might be driven to sell your love for peace, or trade the memory of this night for food. It well may be. I do not think I would. My last Edna St. Vincent Millay sonnet is going to be another of her famous sonnets. This one is not about sex. This one is about writing sonnets. Writing sonnets is something very dear to my heart. I will put chaos into 14 lines and keep him there, and let him thence escape if he be lucky. Let him twist and ape, flood, fire, and demon. His adroit designs will strain to nothing in the strict confines of this sweet order, where in pierced rape I hold his essence and amorphous shape, till he with order mingles and combines. Past are the hours, the years of our duress, his arrogance, his awful servitude. I have him. He is nothing more nor less than something simple, not yet understood. I shall not even force him to confess or answer. I will only make him good. So I'm now going to read 3 of my poems that engage with Edna in some way, beginning with one that I actually wrote in response to her fatal interview sonnet sequence, which is called Across the Blackened Vine. I think of Edna's last great love affair, the subject of her fatal interview, still beautiful at 40 with that hair, the sultry older woman, but she knew her passion for the boy would bring her tears, that he would tire of her and need a girl. I see her pacing steeple top, her fears like plumes of cigarette smoke rise and curl. And yet she never flinched from love, her muse, the poetry, the sex were all too true. We cannot live in fear of what we'll lose while living in the moment, as most do. So when the poems turned into goodbyes, she said the words and memorized his eyes. And as I've mentioned, I have written many sonnets. This one, I think, is perhaps one of my most Millay-esque in that it has a central metaphor that it builds on. Tornado sky. A wise man told me once that it's the hue of mottled skin, like lizards' underscales or rotting apricots. The thing to do is find a safe room as the half-light fails. The imminent tornado will erase all in its path, drop houses, scatter cars, and orphan children. Afterwards, the maze of refuse runs across the land like scars. I see it every time I meet your eyes. It's coming, and no room is safe enough to keep us from the storm of truth and lies that scythes towards us. This is not a bluff. The wise man told me, stop the car and run. Some fools will die here. Make sure you aren't one. And then the last poem I'm going to read is actually a funny poem, because although we worship our four-mother poets, it's best not to put them on a pedestal. Sister Edna. Edna St. Vincent Millay would not be permitted today to have so much fun. If she'd lived like a nun, would the sonnets be worthy but grey? Thank you very much.
Woo! I had a delay in adding myself because I was clapping in the backstage. Anna, thank you so much for all of those Edna St. Vincent Millay poems that you shared, and for your very own poems in response to her. They were just fabulous.
They were. That Edna, she was hot to
Spicy. Yeah.
Spicy lady.
That was quite a contrast from all your preceding readings.
Oh no, we love variety.
We absolutely
love variety. We love sexy poems.
We do.
Yeah, she was great.
Anna, you brought the sexy.
Yeah.
Well, not that we don't have, a bit of that in the other readings in different ways, but the spicy, a little bit more of the spicy stuff tonight. But that was such an absolute pleasure. Anna, could you share maybe a little bit more about how Edna St. Vincent Millay has influenced you, additional pearls that you've gained from her? Can you share just a little bit more with us?
So yeah, actually, that was there's another poem by her. It's really, really super short.
Sure, go for it.
And I'm going to read it because it illustrates a couple of things. First of all, it is her philosophy of life, which she unfortunately died quite young because she did live a fairly fast life.
Woo!
Wrote this when she was quite young as well. It's called First Fig. It's very famous. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But my foes, and oh, my friends, it gives a lovely light.
Yeah.
First of all, that illustrates her philosophy, which is like, seize the day. But it's also interesting because she, in her later years, she despised the fact that this was the poem that she was going to be remembered for when she'd written so many much deeper poems. But yes, unfortunately, it is. So, it didn't define her, or she didn't feel it defined her, but it's certainly in these times of pandemic when, things are very uncertain or have been, it's definitely good advice to live in the moment and seize the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How perfect. And Anna, can you, while we've still got you up here, you are involved in Poetry by the Sea. You are, I believe, also involved in the how Mezzo Cammin is now running. It's a literary journal of formalist women poets. Can you, is there anything else that you'd love to share briefly about women's poetry?
Well, I'd like to make two observations. Obviously, Poetry by the Sea, which was begun by Kim Bridgeford. We're not actually having the conference this year because of COVID, but there is an online event on the 26th of May. So please do follow us on Facebook so that you can be alerted to when that's happening and get a link, and then you can see various readings for Kim and also celebrating the conference and the award winners, because we still ran the sonnet competition and we are currently running the book competition. So if any women writers out there, any writers actually, because it's not women, had a book published in 2020, that we are giving an award for the best book of poetry published in 2020. So you can submit to that. And for Mezzo Cammin, we are currently reading submissions by, it's not entirely formal poetry, but we do like poetry that pays attention to form. So you can go to mezzocamin.com, use the submissions manager, send me some poems.
Woo!
Women only. That one's women only.
Women only. Perfect. Thank you so much, Anna. And can you leave us with a pearl of wisdom for young women poets, emerging women writers, or just writers in general?
I was thinking of this when Rachel Basch was speaking, and she was speaking, I think, more about subject matter and how we shouldn't be put off by our subject matter. And of course, Edna is a great example of that, because she did venture into these areas that women just weren't writing about in that time. But I would build on that by saying also form. A lot of women poets, or a lot of poets in general, are scared of form because it's not trendy or fashionable to write in form. But if that's what you want to do, if that's what your muse tells you to do, like my muse tells me to do that,
yes,
be true to that. Don't try and become something you're not by writing trendy free verse. If you really want to be a formalist, just be the best formalist you can be.
I love it. Anna, thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are going to...
Hey,
introduce
your book came out in 2020, didn't it?
my book at the very end of 2019.
No, really?
What's that?
I thought it came out in. Oh shoot! Well, that's no
I
good.
know. I just missed it. But you know what, Chris? I am seriously considering. I think I gotta submit to the Mezzo Cammin literary journal. So I want to
Okay.
make sure I get involved.
All right.
Yes. Well, Chris, we need to introduce Christine Kubick. Hey,
That's
Christine.
right. Okay, you could take it away there.
I will. All right. We're going to share Christine's bio with you. Christine Kubick's stories have appeared in the Washington Post, Poets and Writers, Brainchild, Washingtonian, and Chautauqua, among others. Her essays and profiles have received awards from the American Society of Journalists and Authors, and she was awarded a 2021 Elizabeth George Foundation grant for her fiction work. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Fairfield University. In addition to writing, Christine enjoys working with writers to help shape their stories and has led workshops for the Writers Center in the Washington, D.C. region, Muse Writers, Norfolk, and the Armed Services Arts Partnership. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you both for organizing this. It has been so nice this year to pop in on these and see writers I know and writers I don't know and hear their work. The first thing for International Women's Day, I was thinking of reading. I think if Casey had a theme of Eve, my theme would be choice and the choice, and not just the choice. I have my RBG shirt on tonight that gets talked about politically, but Dr. Edith Eger wrote this book, The Choice, which kind of looks at choice in a bigger picture. And I'm going to read just a passage from it from the beginning. And it's a memoir about her surviving the Holocaust in Auschwitz. I am used to being the silent sister, the invisible one. It doesn't occur to me that Magda might tire of being the clown, that Clara might resent being the prodigy. She can't stop being extraordinary, not for a second, or everything might be taken from her. The adoration she's accustomed to, her very sense of self. Magda and I have to work at getting something we are certain there will never be enough of. Clara has to worry that at any moment she might make a fatal mistake and lose it all. Clara has been playing the violin all my life, since she was 3. It's not until much later that I realized the cost of her extraordinary talent. She gave up being a child. I never saw her play with dolls. Instead, she stood in front of an open window to practice violin, not able to enjoy her creative genius unless she could summon an audience of passerby to witness it. Does Mama love Papa? I ask my sisters now. The distance between our parents, the sad things they have each confessed to me, remind me that I have never seen them dressed up to go out together. What a question, Clara says. Though she denies my concern, I think I see recognition in her eyes. We will never discuss it again, though I will try. It will take me years to learn what my sisters must already know, that what we call love is often something more conditional, the reward for a performance, what you settle for. As we put on our nightgowns and get into bed, I erase my worry for my parents and think instead of my ballet master and his wife, of the feeling I get when I take the steps up to the studio 2 or 3 at a time and kick off my school clothes, pull on my leotard and tights. I have been studying ballet since I was 5 years old. Since my mother intuited that I wasn't a musician, that I had other gifts. Just today we practiced the splits. Our ballet master reminded us that strength and flexibility are inseparable. For one muscle to flex, another must open. To achieve length and limberness, we have to hold our cores strong. I hold his instructions in my mind like a prayer. Down I go, spine straight, abdominal muscles tight, legs stretching apart. I know to breathe, especially when I feel stuck. I picture my body expanding like the strings on my sister's violin, finding the exact place of tautness that makes the whole instrument ring. And I am down, I am here, in the full splits. Brava, my ballet master claps. Stay right as you are. He lifts me off the ground and over his head. It's hard to keep my legs fully extended without the floor to push against. But for a moment, I feel like an offering. I feel like pure light. Edie, my teacher says, all your ecstasy in life is going to come from the inside. It will take me years to really understand what he means. For now, all I know is that I can breathe and spin and kick and bend. As my muscles stretch and strengthen, every moment, every pose seems to call out, I am me, I am somebody. Memory is sacred ground, but it's haunted too. It's the place where my rage and guilt and grief go circling like hungry birds scavenging the same old bones. It's the place where I go searching for the answer to the unanswerable question, why did I survive? I am 7 years old and my parents are hosting a dinner party. They send me out of the room to refill a pitcher of water. From the kitchen, I hear them joke. We could have saved that one. I think they mean that before I came along, they were already a complete family. They had a daughter who played piano and a daughter who played violin. I am unnecessary. I am not good enough. There is no room for me, I think. This is the way we misinterpret the facts of our lives, the way we assume and don't check it out, the way we invent a story to tell ourselves, reinforcing the very thing in us we already believe. Do these memories give me an image of my strength or of my damage? Maybe every childhood is the terrain on which we try to pinpoint how much we matter and how much we don't. A map where we study the dimensions and the borders of our worth. Maybe every life is a study of the things we don't have, but wish we did, and the things we have, but wish we didn't. It took me many decades to discover that I could come at my life with a different question. Not why did I live, but what is mine to do with the life I've been given? So, and one quote I'll share from her is she says, the foundation of freedom is the power to choose, which I was thinking of too as with Rachel's reading there. And then I will share this, a very short piece from my own work that was the piece from Chautauqua and very much a Fairfield inspired piece. It started as a homework assignment in one of Kim Kupperman's workshops for those of you who worked with her. And Eugenia, who's reading next, helped me many a time. So my apologies to Eugenia for hearing this again, but it's called Conceptions. This story begins at the beginning, in the womb, or maybe conception, or perhaps, if one is interested in the entire truth, the events that led to that conception. What I know for sure is that I spent 40 weeks of my life underwater in a cocoon of warmth and darkness. The experts say we develop faster in the womb than at any other time in our lives, and that we spend that time absorbing noises and smells, sensing our mother's moods, and gathering intel on our soon-to-be environment. If this is true, then I'm sure I sensed from within that first clandestine space that something was amiss. I might have had an inkling that my mother was an uptown girl, her plaid pleated skirt swishing side to side as she hurried through the hallways of her all-girls Catholic school in upstate New York. I bet my heartbeat raced with hers the day she was caught vomiting in the bathroom. The school nurse called her mother. The voices were furious that night. Annie, how could you do this to us? And again, 2 days later, when her parents found us sitting on a park bench with the boy who got her pregnant. She and I were almost 4 months together by then, and on a bus the next day, destined for her older sister's house in Maryland. She with a phony wedding ring and her father's parting instructions. Tell anyone who asks that your husband is in Vietnam. Upheaval marked the end of each trimester. First the move to Maryland, then to Massachusetts, a cold sequestered place in the valley of the Berkshire Mountains, where there were suddenly many more voices that sounded like hers. As the weeks wore on and I grew larger, we were two parts of one whole. I was a place to rest her forearms as she learned to knit soft scarves, a muse for the poems I would one day read, and a captive audience as her fingers raced and lingered across piano keys, practicing Chopin, Rachmaninoff, and Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Sometimes she'd hum along. Her music and alto voice were the soundtrack for my growing limbic system, the part of me primed and ready to hear which person in a room full of strangers was her. She had an upset stomach after eating formerly forbidden chocolate on Halloween night. She thought it was indigestion. I was born the next day. What happened next, I would one day discover, happened to more than 2 million babies born in America in the decades before Roe v. Wade. I was swaddled in a blanket in one of the hospital nursery's back row bassinets, alongside the other illegitimates, or bastards, as the not-so-kind called us. Wanted babies, those born to married couples, lined the front rows where visiting families adored them. I imagine I was lulled by all that felt familiar in the short time Anne held and kissed me. She touched each of my fingers and toes. And then the connection with her. The music stopped. She returned home and reported to her younger siblings and friends that she was finally over a horrific case of mono. 2 days later, I left with a nun to spend my first trimester out of the womb, my first Thanksgiving and Christmas at an orphanage. At the end of January, a nun handed my new father a revised birth certificate, placed me in my adoptive mother's arms, and said, "Here, it's as if you gave birth to her yourself." They thought we were blank slates. I still wonder sometimes who took care of all those babies, who held us and fed us before we were adopted. There are no pictures, no notes on first smiles. I realized this in the middle of one cloudless night as I breastfed my new son near my bedroom window. His little fist reached up and clung to a curl of my hair as he nursed, as if to say, I belong to you. I studied his round pink face illuminated by the moonlight. I touched each of his sausage-shaped toes. I couldn't imagine having to untangle my hair from his fingers and hand him over, never to smell his sweet, powdery soft skin again, or know the person he would become. And I wondered what it was like for my first mother, for Anne. What is it like to surrender your baby? How do you live forward in a fiction? And what does it do to a person, to us, in the end?
Christine, that was such a gorgeous and powerful reading. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. Oh, I was totally captivated. And you have to go and look Facebook and YouTube and just see all of the comments. And
thank you.
Everybody feeling the same way. It's just absolutely powerful stuff. Thank you so much. Christine, can you share just any additional comments about the pieces you shared tonight? Anything else that you'd love to share with us?
Well, two things to the question I think you're going to ask next about inspirations, because I was really lucky to work with two of the people speaking tonight. And I would say the two things about writing that have really stuck with me and been valuable. One from Rachel, which I think of when I read that, which is not as visceral as it used to be for me, but in workshops with Rachel and some Updike stories that she read, I took away from working with her. She has this unflinching ability to not look away, that it's right in those moments that I think you want to look away or not feel that thing, that's where the heart of the story is. And to how to get used to sitting with that and exploring that. So that's one learning that I've really taken with me. And then from Eugenia, I'd say perseverance, because as she knows, my fiction pace is like a turtle. And one of the other writers, I'll just share this thing because Ann Patchett's another writer who really inspired me. And I was torn between Ann Patchett and The Choice, but of all people, I never expected to read this in her advice on writing. And this is the story of a happy marriage. And it's this one essay she writes, The Getaway Card. And she writes, forgiveness, the ability to forgive oneself. Stop here for a few breaths and think about this, because it is the key to making art. And very possibly the key to finding any semblance of happiness in life. Every time I have set out to translate the book that exists in such brilliant detail in the big screen of my mind, let's face it, was what I grieve for my own lack of talent and intelligence every single time. Were I smarter, more gifted, I could pin down a closer facsimile of the wonders I see. I believe more than anything that this grief of constantly having to face down our own inadequacies is what keeps people from being writers. Forgiveness, therefore, is the key. I can't write the book I want to write, but I can and will write the book I am capable of writing.
I love that.
that.
Thank you so much, Christine. That is such great stuff to share. And, you know, that's kind of a perfect, almost little segue to our final reader of the evening, Eugenia Kim. Before we welcome Eugenia, Christine, just from you, from your heart, can you share with us any just pearls of wisdom for young women writers, emerging women writers, or just writers in general?
I think it's those two things is stay open to looking at the thing you want to turn away from, and persevere, whether it takes you 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, 10 years, if you're writing something longer. I'm tempted to go back to essays a lot, which I love. That's my other favorite form, but I'm trying to use a running metaphor to get through writing a novel.
Fabulous.
So,
there.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Yes. And we are finally welcoming off our final reader of the evening. We're so excited to be able to welcome Eugenia Kim.
We've been trying to get Eugenia on here.
Months and months.
We've had to negotiate, deal with all her representatives. Finally, we have her on here.
She's been in the audience. She has been so incredibly supportive. She's received many shout outs. She is incredibly beloved, and it's just our honor and pleasure to welcome her today. Chris, can you share her bio with us?
It is my honor. Eugenia Kim's debut novel, The Calligrapher's Daughter, won the Borders Original Voices Award, was shortlisted for the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and was a Washington Post Best Historical Novel and Critics Pick. Her second novel, The Kinship of Secrets, was a Library Reads pick, a Book List Best Audiobook, and an Amazon Best Book of the Month / Literature and Fiction. Both were also published in the UK and elsewhere. She teaches fiction and nonfiction, of course, at FUMFA. And we'll be talking about Maxine Hong Kingston tonight. We're very excited to welcome the great Eugenia Kim.
Thank you, you guys. That was embarrassing, but I appreciate it. So, yes, Maxine Hong Kingston. This is just one of her numerous books that I have and that I adore. So I'm going to read from The Woman Warrior, but at first I wanted to talk a little bit about what her influence has been on me and why she continues to inspire me. So of all the books that I've ever read in my very long adult life, there are only a few that I can remember where I was when I read them. And one of them, of course, is Maxine Hong Kingston's Woman Warrior, a memoir of a girlhood among ghosts. And I remember where I was because of the way books can shift one's understanding of self and how one exists in the world, and how that becomes like a physical revelation that allows us to notice and see a moment as if saturated, as if cataracts had been removed from our eyes. Maxine talks about the physicality of reading in the 5th book of Peace. She says, as we read, neuropeptides in the brain grow longer than in non-readers. Thought becomes body. After turning the last page of Woman Warrior, I remember sitting up in my lounge chair on the beach in Anguilla, feeling great satisfaction and something else that I wouldn't understand until about 25 years later. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that feeling was of a seed planted, a seed of recognition, affirmation, and possibility. I wouldn't become a writer until 25 years later when I went for my MFA. And as I was struggling through my graduate thesis, that was not just about my own personal struggle of accepting, the pigeonhole of being a Korean American writer, but I was struggling about what is more authentic, nonfiction or fiction. And then I rediscovered her work, and I found not just the power and the beauty of her prose, but also the depth and wisdom in her stories. And I became a bit of a reader stalker and devoured not only her books, but interviews she'd given. And one of the things that she said that remains a kind of mantra for me to this day is pay attention and tell the truth. And in telling the truth, sometimes you tell it fictionally, and sometimes you tell it non-fictionally. Maxine was interviewed by Bill Moyers about her activism for peace and her writing workshops for veterans of war, mostly the Vietnam War. And I was struck again to hear her say that the motto of these workshops was simply this: tell the truth. Among the many accolades Maxine has received for her books and for her work for peace, she is a living treasure of Hawaii. She received the National Book Foundation's Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. She was awarded the National Humanities Medal by President Clinton and the National Medal of Arts by President Obama. Her work has always been a beacon for me, and she taught me, as she says in the fifth book of Peace, that words have sacred power. Throughout my writing career, she has helped me, and this from Woman Warrior, to make my mind large as the universe is large so that there is room for paradoxes. So I'm going to read from just the beginning of The Woman Warrior, which is something that you may have read in your own long adult lives. I wanted to show you that she signed it to me, to Eugenia Kim's sister, Maxine Hung Kingston. So I was thrilled with that, as you can imagine. And one thing that I just realized tonight, this is that the first section is called No Name Woman, was that I had read this in the maybe the late 80s, no, the early 80s. And I didn't write, my first novel came out in 2009. But the first line in my novel was, she learned she had no name on the same day she learned fear. And I realized tonight, reading that the beginning of this section is called No Name Woman, how much that influenced me to such an extent that I also didn't give my main character a name until she was a much older woman. So, No Name Woman. You must not tell anyone, my mother said, what I am about to tell you. In China, your father had a sister who killed herself. She jumped into the family well. We say that your father has all brothers because it is as if she had never been born. In 1924, just a few days after our village celebrated 17 hurry-up weddings, to make sure that every young man who went out on the road would responsibly come home, your father and his brothers and your grandfather and his brothers and your aunt's new husband sailed for America, the Gold Mountain. It was your grandfather's last trip. Those lucky enough to get contracts waved goodbye from the decks. They fed and guarded the stowaways and helped them off in Cuba, New York, Bali, Hawaii. We'll meet in California next year, they said. All of them sent money home. I remember looking at your aunt one day when she and I were dressing. I had not noticed before that she had such a protruding melon of a stomach, but I did not think. She's pregnant, until she began to look like other pregnant women, her shirt pulling and the white tops of her black pants showing. She could not have been pregnant, you see, because her husband had been gone for years. No one said anything. We did not discuss it. In early summer, she was ready to have the child, long after the time when it could have been possible. The village had also been counting. On the night the baby was to be born, the villagers raided our house. Some were crying. Like a great saw, teeth strung with lights, files of people walked zigzag across our land, tearing the rice. Their lanterns doubled in the disturbed black water, which drained away through the broken bunds. As the villagers closed in, we could see that some of them, probably men and women we knew well, wore white masks. The people with long hair hung it over their faces. Women with short hair made it stand up on end. Some had tied white bands around their foreheads, arms, and legs. At first they threw mud and rocks at the house. Then they threw eggs and began slaughtering our stock. We could hear the animals scream their deaths, the roosters, the pigs, a last great roar from the ox. Familiar wild heads flared in our night windows. The villagers encircled us. Some of the faces stopped to peer at us, their eyes rushing like searchlights. The hands flattened against the panes, framed heads, and left red prints. The villagers broke in the front and the back doors at the same time, even though we had not locked the doors against them. Their knives dripped with the blood of our animals. They smeared blood on the doors and walls. One woman swung a chicken whose throat she had slit, spattering blood in red arcs about her. We stood together in the middle of our house, in the family hall with the pictures and tables of the ancestors around us, and looked straight ahead. At that time, the house had only 2 wings. When the men came back, we would build 2 more to enclose our courtyard and a 3rd one to begin a 2nd courtyard. The villagers pushed through both wings, even your grandparents' rooms, to find your aunt's, which was also mine until the men returned. From this room, a new wing for one of the younger families would grow. They ripped up her clothes and shoes and broke her combs, grinding them underfoot. They tore her work from the loom. They scattered the cooking fire and rolled the new weaving in it. We could hear them in the kitchen breaking our bowls and banging the pots. They overturned the great waist-high earthenware jugs, duck eggs, pickled fruits, vegetables, burst out and mixed in acrid torrents. The old woman from the next field swept a broom through the air and loosed the spirits of the broom over our heads. Pig, ghost, pig, they sobbed and scolded while they ruined our house. When they left, they took sugar and oranges to bless themselves. They cut pieces from the dead animals. Some of them took bowls that were not broken and clothes that were not torn. Afterward, we swept up the rice and sewed it back up into sacks. But the smells from the spilled preserves lasted. Your aunt gave birth in the pigsty that night. The next morning when I went for water, I found her and the baby plugging up the family well. Don't let your father know I told you this. He denies her. Now that you have started to menstruate, what happened to her could happen to you. Don't humiliate us. You wouldn't like to be forgotten as if you had never been born. The villagers are watchful. Whenever she had to warn us about life, my mother told stories that ran like this one, a story to grow up on. She tested our strength to establish realities. Those in the immigrant generations who could not reassert brute survival died young and far from home. Those of us in the first American generations have had to figure out how the invisible world the immigrants built around our childhood fits in solid America. The immigrants confused the gods by diverting their curses, misleading them with crooked streets and false names. They must try to confuse their offspring as well, who, I suppose, threaten them in similar ways, always trying to get things straight, always trying to name the unspeakable. The Chinese, I know, hide their names. Sojourners take new names when their lives change and guard their real names with silence. Chinese Americans, when you try to understand what things in you are Chinese, how do you separate what is peculiar to childhood, to poverty, insanities, one family, your mother who marked your growing with stories, from what is Chinese? What is Chinese tradition and what is the movies? So I will stop there. But it was one of the questions that I always had. What is Korean American and what is your own personal experience? Or what is it that you learned from other sources? And one of the things that I learned about how to be Korean American was from Maxine talking about how to be Chinese American. So thank you.
Eugenia, thank you so much.
Great.
What an incredibly powerful, painful, but so powerful reading. And oh gosh, we'd love to have you back for a feature, but we won't pressure you. We love you so much, Eugenia. It's such a pleasure. And everything that you shared in the beginning about your connection to Maxine's writing and how it's affected you is so, so powerful and just so awesome to hear these stories of how, of how these different women writers, from, Maxine to the other women that were talked about tonight, how they reached us, how they affected us, how they inspired us. It's been such a great, celebration.
Yeah, it has
that has
been.
one of the great
It's been wonderful.
opening paragraphs of about the well and it's just like blows your head off.
Right, and I have since read other stories in other books that have this story in it as well, and I always wondered, this is the first time I ever read that story, but I've read it in a workshop. I've read it in other published works. And so I always wondered, were they all influenced by Maxine Hong Kingston, who wrote this I think in the 78, 79. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredibly
it's amazing
powerful
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
Eugenia, is there anything else from, any other pearls, any other ideas, any other inspiration from Maxine that you would like to share with us, or that you'd like to speak about?
Well, I think that the one thing that I already mentioned, and it is my mantra, because since I both write fiction and nonfiction, and sometimes I have an idea, but I don't know if it's fiction or nonfiction, which direction to go in. But she says, pay attention, like we've been talking about all night long amongst the other writers. Pay attention and tell the truth. And sometimes you tell it fictionally, and sometimes you tell it non-fictionally.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So good.
And then also how to be able to live in a space where there is both goodness and badness. There's controversy and there's peace. How to live in that in-between liminal space, and use that as the energy you need to create.
So good. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eugenia. Chris and I have been asking, a version of kind of our famous last question, which has been to share a pearl of wisdom, and perhaps directed at young women writers or emerging women writers. We'd also love for you to take a moment to offer us an additional recommendation of a woman writer to read. So kind of like a two-pronged question there.
Well, the most recent woman writer that I read is Yaa Gyasi, Yaagyaasi. And her book is The Transcendence, I think. Her first book was called The Homecoming, and the second one is called Transcendence. So Yaa Gyasi.
Right.
She's just a brilliant writer. And then another writer who really influenced me is Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi. That's Ngozi is her last name. Only because her prose is so strong, and her stories are so deep. Her characters face just sort of everyday immigrant problems. I want to say it like that, because immigrant problems are not like, my problems, but she approaches it with such delicacy and such elan that and yet with such wisdom that every time I leave one of her books, I'm just blown away. So those are
great recommendations.
Thank you so much. And a pearl of wisdom for young women writers, emerging women writers.
It's like what I told Christine Kubick. Just keep at it. Persist. One of the things I can say is that my first novel took 17 years and my second novel took 7 years. And so, and God knows I'm in the middle of my third one and it's already been 3 years.
The next one should be due out like next week.
Yeah, right. It should be, but it ain't. It certainly ain't. Yeah, so
I'm sure it's gonna be great.
persistent, but also, showing up so that even when you're uninspired, the inspiration may find you at your chair. And then, and recognizing that sometimes it's just hard work to do this, stuff. Sometimes it's just hard work.
Right. Absolutely.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, Eugenia. And
Thank you.
yes, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you for the readings that you shared, for these pearls of wisdom. And thank you so much to our other readers tonight, Meg Moore, Casey Lee Ford, Rachel Basch, Anna M. Evans, and Christine Kubick. Just big extra applause. For all of them. If you came in late, you gotta watch from the beginning on Facebook and on YouTube, and it will be there. It will be up, available to the public. It's been an incredible evening. We want to wish you all, thank you all for coming, and wish you all a happy International Women's Day. That's tomorrow. Make sure to celebrate women's achievement and accomplishments, and to just enjoy that day and do everything you should do to support women's achievements, charities aimed at women, and
Writers.
Gender equity, especially women writers.
Right. And thank you to Katie and Chris for organizing this. It was a beautiful night. Thank you.
It was our pleasure. And
Thank you.
We have fun. It's easy. So
it was an absolute delight. It really, really was. Thank you so much again, Eugenia. And thanks to you all. Have a fabulous night.
And we'll see everybody next week for open mic.
Yes. Good night, everyone.